Welcome. My name is Frouke Hermens.
My name is Alexander Bolaich.
And together with Thomas Lachman at the Technical University of Kaiserslautern, we conducted a study on global and local processing in a Navon matching task.
So before going further and explaining what is Navon matching task, let's explain what is Navon classical task and what is Navon shape or Navon stimuli. So what is Navon shape? So it's basically a local element, which is a smaller shape composing of a bigger figure called global shape. And it has two forms. On the left, we can see smaller circles composing bigger or global circle, and this is congruent Navon stimuli. On the right, we can see local small diamonds composing bigger circle, global circle, and this is incongruent Navon stimuli, because there are two different shapes that can be observed if we attend local level or global level only. Now, in a typical Navon classical task, participants are presented with one Navon shape, and they are asked to identify the shape attending only one of the two levels, global or local. The graph on the right represents the typical results for reaction times obtained from classical Navon task. First thing we can see is that there is significant difference between responses for global level in comparison for the responses with local level, and that the global responses are much faster. This is called global precedence effect or global advantage effect. We can see on the graph one more interesting detail, and that is another effect. When observing the local level, we can see that there is difference between congruent condition and incongruent condition, and that the responses for the congruent shapes on the local level are much faster than the responses for the incongruent shapes. And what is happening here? So the global shape is affecting the speed of identification of the local elements when local level, of course, is attended. If the global shape is the same as the local element, it brings the advantage to identification of the local elements, and therefore the identification of the local elements becomes faster. However, if the global shape is different than the local one, such as in incongruent condition, it slows down this identification. And this interference happens only for the global level interfering with the local level identification. Vice versa is not taking place, so this effect is called global interference effect.
Okay, so in preparation for a priming study, we expanded this task and now presented two rather than one shape on the computer screen, and gave participants the instruction to indicate whether the two shapes are the same or different. They were asked to do that either on the global level. So here in this case, it's these two stimuli, they would say same because they're both circles. And they were asked to do that on a local level. So in this case, they would have to say different because the left is made up of circles and the right is made up of diamonds.
So in a Navon matching task, we presented two Navon stimuli, one on the left and one on the right, and asked the participants to identify whether the two figures are the same or different on a local level only or on the global level only. So we had two distinctive conditions combined in several blocks. Interstimulus interval was 500 milliseconds, and the response feedback was also 500 milliseconds for correctness and timeout.
Okay, so when we move from the Navon task, which only has a single stimulus, to the Navon matching task, which has two stimuli on the screen, the complexity of the congruency conditions becomes much, much bigger, as you can see on the left. So if you write out all the possible combinations of congruency, you get 15 possible combinations. The there's not enough time to go through each of them now, so I'll go with just one example shown here on the right. So this is an example where there's like a cross-congruency condition. And so you see that the shape on the global shape on the left is identical to the local shape on the right, but also the other way around. The global shape on the right is the same as the local shape on the left. So these are cross-congruent, but not normally congruent. So in both cases, local and global matching, participants have to indicate that the stimuli are different.
We analyzed the data for these 15 subconditions, and here on the graph you can see them plotted for same versus different responses, and for global versus local responses, local in dark green, global in light green. And what we can see on the graph is a clear global advantage effect. So the other things, the other conclusions cannot really be derived from this type of the analysis. So we move to the next one, which is more clear.
Okay, to get a better grasp of what the different components are in this overall reaction time, we therefore fitted a linear model so that we could insert different aspects such as task, type of response, and different types of congruency. So on the left, you will see the results of this linear model where we plot the size of the coefficients, that's the length of the bars, and their direction. So red for when the factor increases direction times, and green for when it reduces direction time. So the top 4 of these effects are all significant, and the bottom 4 are not. So we'll go through the top ones that do significantly affect direction times. So the biggest one, and we already saw that in the previous slide, is whether people judge the two shapes on whether they're locally or globally congruent. So that's the instruction level. And people are slower when they have to look at the smaller shapes than when they have to look at the bigger shapes, the global shapes. Next, you see that people are faster when the two stimuli are congruent on a global level. So here on the right, you see that both are circles on a global level, so people are faster in this one. They're also faster when they have to respond same rather than different. And finally, the last significant effect is also when they're locally congruent. So if these two shapes would have both been made up of circles, they would have been faster than if they are now one made up of circles and the other one made of diamonds. Okay, so this is a quick walkthrough our results. If you have any further questions, please drop by at the poster session, send me a tweet or send me an email. Also, Alexander is very happy to answer your emails. So get in touch with me and I'll forward any of your questions. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you for your attention.